So, what kinds of other businesses or investments do you see yourself wanting to get into or participate in the future?
Well, what's kind of funny is that I might have talked to you about with you about this before. Is that I'm starting to see that in the future, and it's not now, but in the future, I would like to be able to make more decisions. And the truth is, a lot of the times when it comes down to the CFO role, I always say that we're like the Q to the James Bond. So what we do is we give the tools necessary for James Bond to complete his mission.
Right.
But I might want to be James Bond next.
Yeah,
is what
yeah.
I'm saying. So I mean, in my next company's whatever iteration that looks like, and it could be a long time from now, it could be 3, 5, 10 years from now, is that I would like to create more. I do find myself to be a little bit more creative. When it comes down to investments, it's an interesting place because there's an interesting thing that happens with investments is that whenever people are uncertain, they tend to diversify. So they'll put less bets on a lot of things because they're not certain what's going to actually work. When it comes down to cannabis, is you and I ourselves have a little bit more insight than other people. We've seen what works and what doesn't work. In the cannabis space with investing, I feel if I see something that in my gut, and my gut is just basically experience that I've had in the cannabis industry that seems like a good bet, that's when I'll place my bets. So, I mean, technically, you could say that I've placed my bets on True Terpenes and VapeJet because I think those are going to be successful companies. When it comes down to the rest of the industry, I see a lot of companies that are being misled because when it comes down to it's interesting, but it's almost, this is a philosophical thing, which is everything in your life is a bet. When you get out of bed in the morning, it's a bet that it's going to be greater if you get out of bed versus if you just stay in bed, which usually is the case. Once in a while, it's not, and you just stay in bed, you know? And so I actually look at investments as a pit of snakes almost. It's a pit of snakes, and there's gold in the middle, and there's different sizes of gold. And usually what happens is that really large piece of gold in this middle of in a pit of snakes, there's a lot more snakes around, so it's really easy for you to get attacked by them, right? And when it comes down to people making investments, is that a lot of people seem to jump in the same pits. You know, they all make like a mad rush for the same pits.
Yeah.
And that's really dangerous actually
Yeah, if
because
it's not cannabis right now, it's Bitcoin.
yeah, it's
or-
Bitcoin.
right.
It's something else. They
Yeah.
they all it were tulips back in like what was it the 20s
Yeah,
or
yeah.
40s, right? That's what they always talk about, the tulip bubble. And the thing about it is that you might actually have a pit where there's not that much risk. I mean, not that many snakes, and the gold is decent. You know, like there's a decent amount of return. But if you get enough people in there, there's a very likely chance that some idiot's going to kick the snake over to you, and you're going to get bitten anyway. So, that's what's really tough about investing is that typically you're looking for something that other people aren't noticing, that doesn't have that many snakes, that has a good piece of gold in the middle.
That's an interesting way of thinking about so when you think about kind of being in the crowd, you're worried that somebody in the crowd is going to do something dumb, like kick the snake over your way
Exactly.
that causes you harm. It's funny because I was listening to one of my friends was talking the other day about being he had just taken a vacation to Hawaii, and he was swimming. He was off the Big Island, and he was swimming in shallow water, and before he knew it, he felt like he was maybe a quarter a mile, half a mile away from shore. I mean, it looked like a long way to him.
Yeah.
And that freaked him out because he was all by himself. And the thought that went through his head is, if there's a shark out here, I wish I was with a crowd, because then I would have a lower chance of being the one.
It's true. It's logical. It's really logical. Yeah.
So it's like the glass half empty, glass half full, right? You look at the crowd as a potential danger. He looks at the crowd as potential protection.
No, it's actually that's very accurate. That's a different way to look at it too. But I mean, that's when it comes down to a lot of investing. Is I kind of look at the trends and see where people are going. But cannabis is one where we've been lucky. We've been able to see the inside of a lot of different organizations, and I would say some we've seen are best in class. So we've seen the things they've done to succeed. And of course, in everything, there's an element of luck. That's just the way it is. Probability is key. It's that 1 in 400 trillion they always talk about being a human. That's a Gary Vee thing again. But
Right.
Just overall in cannabis and in ancillary cannabis, I'm looking for the things that other people might not notice, but realize that there's a good return in it. And also if it's just interesting. The truth is, I've also learned that if something interests me enough, the return is that I get to look at it more. And if that's the case, I might invest in it just because it's interesting to me. Just like people too, right? Like
Yeah.
if someone's interesting enough, you might just want to spend more time with them. So
Yeah, I think, yeah, that's so true. I think that, and I find myself, I'm always wanting to justify why I do things from a utility perspective, and
Yeah.
so, I think I make up reasons to spend time with people that's are like other reasons besides that's just a cool person that maybe
Yeah.
I want to spend some time with, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's